I fixed it. Yes, I did. Before I explain to you what I did, I just have to let you know I'd ordered 2 new hand-in springs from Cimarron. There was a fellow on eBay that had one brand new for $62.50 plus shipping. I about soiled my underwear when I saw that price, as I would imagine some of you would also. So I called Taylor's. They didn't have any in stock, but Taylor's was like $21, something like that. I thought, well, I'll order 2. But then I turned right around and called Cimarron, and they had 5 of them in stock at $15 and some change a piece. So I ordered 2 of those. Not that I'm expecting this to break, but you never know. And also I have that 62 pocket navy that, you know, we all know these are a weak spot with these firearms. So, oh, and I also ordered another bolt just in case, because we all know that they fail. And since I was ordering parts, here's that dovetail sight that I thought I was going to put into this gun. Well, I went ahead and ordered a Remington dovetail front sight. So when that all comes in, this gun will get a Remington front sight. I know. The time, space, continuum fabric just tore. We're all going to go into extinction because I did this. But it is fixed for the time being. And this was my 3rd attempt. Yeah, the first 2 attempts failed. So, let's go back to the drawing board. Here's the broken spring. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a measurement on that. Okay, in the thickness. Okay, the thickness is oops. Let me get this into 0.021. Okay. Now I will tell you that's probably not completely accurate, just simply because this spring still has edges on it. I probably should have sanded the edges down, but I did not. In fact, when I get to the top, it's 0.020. Okay, so we'll just, for ease of working with numbers, we'll call it 20 thousandths. Okay, so my first attempt, I have plenty of strapping material. And when I say strapping material, you go to the lumber yard and they have this spring type steel. Okay? And they just usually throw this away. Well, the narrow band stuff that I have is 24 thousandths thick. So that's really right in line for making a spring. Then I have some wider stuff, and that is 0.028, which would actually make a much stronger spring. And remember, I also have this spring saw blade material, and that measures, let me get a good spot here, reset to inches, and that measures 0.042. So that would be even stronger. In fact, a little bit too strong. So I took this wider material and I cut out a spring. And there's the spring. Shaped it. Everything worked fine until I put it in the gun. Let me just kind of explain here. If you guys look at these hands real close and look at the back side, don't laugh at the chicken scratch, but the spring would insert right here. Okay, so this would be the back of the hand. The spring would sit in here. Now, you can't see it, and I know I'm not going to be able to show it, but on the bottom of that spring, it's got two little tiny notches on the side. Kind of drew it out for you right there. Okay? When they insert that spring into what is the pocket, they pinch the sides down, sort of like this, and that's what locks that spring in place. And yes, there's a little bit of movement in some of those springs. So, having taken a small piece of metal, I opened that back up. I made the spring, inserted it. I did not put any notches on it. That was kind of like a way afterthought. So what I did is I packed it full of JB Weld, and then I very gingerly tapped it down so that it was sitting up against the back of the new spring. Let the JB Weld dry for 24 hours. Inserted it in the gun, and after about the third cycle, she quit working. The issue was this: even though this is spring steel, okay, even though it's spring steel, the temper in it is not conducive for that handspring on these guns. So even though you can get a spring out of it, what needed to be done with that working hand, the working spring, I lost the bend out of it, and it wouldn't throw the hand far enough forward. So I had to go and look for some more material, and I really couldn't call to mind what I had that could be used until I realized I do make my own Kydeck holsters. Okay, and when I first started learning to make those holsters, you can buy these spring-loaded clips. So when I found this in my drawer, I thought, you know, I'll bet this is strong enough to be the spring on that hand. So I sacrificed one of my clips and I made a spring out of it. And I actually made two, because I have to show you what I actually did, and I made the first one a little too short, just simply because when you look at the factory, they just make a small cut right here, peel back this piece of metal, and then they pinch it shut. Well, what I did is I took my Dremel tool, and here again, having moved this back and forth a couple of times, it didn't break, but I could tell by that metal it was weakening. Okay, so I had a sneaky suspicion that it was going to eventually fail. So what I did is I took my Dremel tool and I cut a notch down to here. Okay, and yes, that will change the angle of that spring that sets on the back of your hand. So once I got that cut, I fitted the new spring made out of this material. Okay, now before I go any further, you need to know this spring stock is 33 thousandths thick. It was going to be massively way too strong. So what I did is I hand sanded it, planed it down, and I got it to about 25 thousandths thick. Okay. Now, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to pinch this new spring into place, what I did is I first tried JB welding it in place. That failed. That actually failed. So what I did is I went, cleaned everything up, took that little cutting bit, cleaned out the inside of the groove right here, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen because I was a little apprehensive in putting heat to that spring, just simply because the heat would remove some of that tension. So I sanded it down, but I left it thick. I left it thick on purpose. Okay, so what I did, and I'll take the gun apart and I'll show you here just a little bit. So what I did is I first filled this channel with silver solder. So I heated the part up, got it molten, and then I took the spring, put some flux on it, and heated up. No, I did not heat up the spring. I just heated up the metal right here. And that heat would transfer to the spring and hold it in place. And that's what I did. Now, granted, you can look at the angle, and that spring is coming up in the wrong angle. Most of these springs kind of like follow the contour of the hammer. Because the angle changed, you can actually get away with a little shorter spring, and that's what I ended up doing. I actually shortened it a little bit, so instead of the spring coming out following the contour, it kind of comes up like this, and it obviously provides enough pressure to rotate your cylinder and lock it in place. Okay, now, one of the reasons why I left it thick is because once I got the solder to hold everything in place, then I took the file and then I worked it down a little bit thinner, just so that there was just a little bit of movement in that spring. And as you can see, it works. So let me, I'm going to shut the camera off, take the gun apart, and I'll show you the piece. I hope that's enough light for everybody to kind of see what I got accomplished. And as you can see, the angle did change on it, but it works just fine. And I'm going to turn it around. Now, let me just explain one thing first. This is the side that actually rides on the inside of the frame. So I did sand off all of the solder that was, obtrusive and smoothed it all out. The other side, I left the solder a little thick, okay? But, and it is, if you look at these, it's hard to do it against the gray background on my shirt, but if you look at these real close, that little pin that goes in the hammer, yeah, this is looking pretty bad. I don't, guys, I just can't get you a good shot here. There we go, maybe that'll work. If you take a look at that pin, there's a little collar on that. That little collar actually keeps this side of the spring, the handspring, off of the hammer. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the gap between there, but there is actually a gap there, so it doesn't actually ride up against the hammer. So you can leave that solder a little thick, which in my opinion would help, support this as a working hand spring. And one thing that I did do, I probably should explain it, and at this point I don't really think it's going to matter. I was looking at it from the perspective of the JB Weld keeping everything in line, but on the bottom of the spring, let me draw this out real quick. On the bottom of the spring that's in the gun right now, I actually cut a little notch, because my thought is if that JB Weld can get onto both sides, here and here, it would help hold it better. It did not. But there again, I didn't need to make another one because silver soldering it in place worked just fine, as we could see. and I don't know how well the camera can pick up, but there's just a little bit of spring, and that spring is enough, in my opinion, until I get out and shoot it. When I'm shooting it, it may fail. But that's the back side of the spring. We kind of rotate it a little bit. And I don't know if you guys can actually see it on the camera or not. But having just taken it out of the gun, there's still enough lube in the gun that I could actually see that the spring, it rides right here. It doesn't ride on the top side, it rides right about in through here. So, anywho, that's what I did to resolve this issue. And I also did make the new spring narrower. The factory spring is .080, and the new spring that's working right now at the working portion is .70, so it's 10 thousandths narrower. And the reason I did that, because I knew I was going to be making it thicker, and making it narrower will kind of compensate for that. And I didn't record it because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen, and I'm hoping that, you know, the chicken scratch drawings can kind of give, you know, you friends an avenue to go if you encounter this. Now, I will tell you, you can buy the spring separately for like about $3, but the problem that you're going to face, the problem that you will face in doing that, is you're going to have to peel this piece off of the back of the hand, just simply because there is a notch in that spring. And there again, if you start flexing that piece of, you know, that piece of metal that you have to peel out too many times, it's going to snap. So I elected just to buy 2 new hands and springs. That way there, I can know, or at least I know for the time being, that this will work. So anyhow, friends, I hope you can glean something from this. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the like button, which is the thumbs up anyways. But to share it with your bestest of buds. Because we all know that when we shoot these black powder guns, this is an item that fails frequent enough that it's aggravating. So a thicker spring. Oh, you probably might want to know, before my battery dies completely, it's pretty cold in here right now, but I got this down to right on the working part. I'm not talking about the top, because I left the top thick. The top is about 28 thousandths thick, but that's not the working part of the spring. The working part of the spring is right in through here. And as best as I can get it, right now, I'm right at, see, I can't get in there straight without it getting cockeyed, but the best that I could get was about 24 thousandths. So I'm actually 4 thousandths thicker, but again, the material is designed for this type of work. So anyhow, guys, I'll leave you with that. Have a great day, have a good week, keep your powder dry, and may your aim be spot on and your sensibility even clearer. Thanks. Bye.